Alright guys, BLM here back with a new video, and in this video we're back with another video about Survivor 50, where I did say back when the cast came out that I would likely do some sort of update video once we got more information about the season, once we got things like tribe divisions and some results to the fan votes that were there, to where, again, the time has come to finally make a video talking through those things. Now, originally this video was actually going to be mixed with my typical cast reaction to the newbie cast from the year, and also, again, the kind of like updated thoughts on the future Survivor, where I do that sort of video once a year. I was initially going to mix that in with this. I decided to end up not doing that. One, because I feel like there's enough topics to actually talk about 50 alone. Also, it helps me fill up the schedule with another video. So, again, I'm doing it that way. Either way, again, we do have a decent amount of 50 stuff to talk about here. Now, I do want to give a massive disclaimer here and really just talk about this topic first, in the fact that at the time of this recording, which I am recording this about a week before this video will probably publicly come out, and we are in a spot where Survivor 50 is somewhat spoiled. Not necessarily the winner or the final three or anything like that. However, there are very credible sources already spoiling the pre-jurors and the post-jurors, and in general, I will not be talking about that in this video. I will not be talking about that really at all in any formal video, as again, I think it's not really the right place to do that, to where, again, this will be a spoiler-free video, though, again, I have to give the disclaimer that, yes, I do know what these spoilers are, but obviously, again, going to attempt to not have those influence my thoughts when running through this cast, and again, how will that affect future 50 coverage, we'll have to see. But with that said, again, obviously, again, 50 spoilers are going to be rampant out there. Really, every returning season has been spoiled up to this point, and I don't think 50 is going to be any different. I would not be shocked if within the month we do have full-blown winter spoilers, final three spoilers. But again, I will never be talking about those things in my actual videos. Now, jumping into what we're actually meant to be talking about, again, let's get to the tribe division. Also, obviously, credit to Redmond for most of this information, and also for the graphics of the tribes that I'm about to use, as he's obviously the one to leak all these things and obviously allows us to talk it through here. Now, to give another disclaimer before we get into this, I do have to obviously say that I will be spoiling the 49 returnees through this portion of the video, where obviously it'd be very difficult to not do that, and through, again, there will be some speculation on 49 placements along with that, to where, again, if you just want to completely avoid 49 talk at all, again, I will have timestamps in the video for you to jump into a section where, again, I talk about the more format aspects of the season. By the way, let's talk about the tribe divisions. First up, we do have the Teal Tribe, where obviously through this color, again, you can kind of gauge which color won the fan vote. Tribe that contains Charlie, Coach, Jonathan, Mike White, Chrissy, Dee, Camilla, and Tiffany. And right off the bat, I think you can instantly tell this is a pretty stacked tribe. I mean, I will say, again, just in general, it does feel like they once again kind of screwed up the balancing of these tribes, where I think this tribe in particular just seems really OP, really having everything that you would want from a challenge perspective. Again, having some of the strongest physical competitors in recent years. Again, you have Jonathan there, you have Dee, you have Tiffany, who's pretty good. Chrissy is one of the strongest older women to play the game. Charlie is no slouch. Camilla is obviously incredible at puzzles. Again, this is a pretty stacked tribe from a challenge perspective. So I would not be shocked if this tribe just never goes to tribal, considering, again, this just seems like a pretty OP tribe, has everything that you would want from a challenge perspective. But in terms of the actual dynamics on this tribe, I think it's also kind of interesting, where I think on paper you would think Coach might be screwed, considering Coach is the only old schooler in this group. It is a group that is majority new era, which I know is something that a lot of people were disappointed by, talking about that they wanted the tribes to be split even old era, new era, and that's what they thought they were doing. Yet I personally never thought they were doing, like, even though obviously the cast does end up being 12 old era, 12 new era, I think it was pretty clear that was not really by intention, at least in the sense that they were never going to make this actual like old era versus new era dynamic a part of the season, as again at that point you would just name the season old era versus new era. So while again it would have made sense to do that, they obviously didn't do that here, where again we have 5 new era players and 3 old era, with again Coach being the only pre-30s player on this tribe. And through that, I think you would think he's pretty screwed. However, I actually think this is a really good setup for Coach, where despite him not having anybody that he's previously played before, he does have actually some connections here, where again we know he's friends with Charlie through Ben, so again he has that connection, while Dee is also close to Ben, and through that again I think has a connection with Coach, to where I can definitely see a Coach Charlie Dee alliance right off the bat. I can definitely see Coach and Jonathan wanting to work together as well. I can even see Chrissy fitting into this group as well. Again, Chrissy definitely feels like someone that could be like the Julie to D. I feel like Chrissy and Coach could also get along. I think Chrissy could be Charlie's new Maria, though again, he might be scarred from that. To where, beyond that, again, I think D and Tiffany is definitely a relationship I could see linking up. To where, again, I think there's a lot of connections here on this tribe that I could see coming together. Now, weird thing here is the fact that Charlie and Tiffany end up being on the same tribe here. And obviously, at the end of the day, it's not like Charlie and Tiffany have that much of a true connective tissue outside of just being on the same cast. Though, again, I believe they're friendly outside the show. But again, it's still a spot where they don't really have any reason to necessarily split them up outside the fact that, again, we have 3 tribes and 346 players. So it is weird that they end up having both Charlie and Tiffany on the same tribe. Again, I personally would split them up. I feel like that would be the more obvious thing to do. Yeah, again, for some reason they're on this tribe together, which is, again, very strange. So ultimately, I do feel pretty bad for Camilla. One, again, in a spot where, again, I already talked about this before, that I think Camilla's coming to the season with one of the biggest targets on her back, and I don't feel like this is the greatest tribe for her. Mind you, it's also not the worst tribe for her, and I do think there are worlds where she's able to find some connections here, especially considering I believe she's like a massive fan of Coach. So I can kind of see her being like the Edna to Coach, even though, again, like Coach technically cut Edna eventually, but either way, I do feel like Camilla is someone that, again, is definitely not in a great spot here, but again, I think it's recoverable. Although Mike White also is someone that I just don't know where he necessarily fits into this tribe, where a lot of people were talking about this coming into this season, that Mike White is someone that everyone was going to want to keep around. And for the White Lotus cameo, and again, I never subscribed to that fact, and I do feel like Mike White here is not particularly well situated. Again, he is obviously very gifted socially. Again, from what we've heard from the David vs. Goliath cast, again, he was just so well liked out there to where, again, there are definitely connections that he could build out here, though again, I think just on the offset, I do kind of struggle to see where exactly he lands in this group. Though again, at the end of the day, again, I just think this tribe is so stacked. I just really do not see this tribe going to tribal. I feel like this is going to be a tribe that's going to be pretty hard to beat from a challenge perspective. And with that, then move on to the Orange Tribe, a tribe containing Christian, Joe, Ozzy, Rick Devens, Sari, Emily, Jenna, and again, 49 spoiler here, Savannah. And this is a tribe that I also feel like is pretty good. Now, again, I don't think it's as stacked as the Teal Tribe, but I also feel like it's a tribe that, again, feels pretty balanced competitor-wise. Now, again, obviously has both Joe and Ozzy on the same tribe, which does feel a bit OP. Again, 2 of the best challenge competitors in Survivor history on the same tribe together. And Rick Devens is, again, no slouch, won a lot of immunities. Savannah seems like someone that is, again, decently fit. You have Christian, one of the best puzzle competitors the show has ever seen. And then you have, again, the likes of Sari, Emily, and Jenna, who, again, not as strong. And I do feel like this is a spot here where it definitely feels like a tribe where the men are a lot stronger than the women, and also a spot where I feel like this is probably the weakest women group of the 3 tribes. Though again, I do think the combination of Joe and Ozzy does just feel so overpowered, where again, it just feels like another tribe that is kind of, again, very well set up from a physical perspective with, again, the likes of Joe, Ozzy, Rick Devens, Savannah, while also having Christian as a very good puzzle maker. To another tribe that, again, I think can do very well in challenges. Now, in terms of connections here, obviously one like really glowing one, the fact that we have Ozzy and Sri back on the same tribe again. I mean, this is the 3rd time that they're on the same starting tribe together, which is pretty insane. I feel like they are obviously going to work together here. Well, obviously coming into Game Changers, again, it was a little bit more rocky. Obviously, post Game Changers, they've been extremely friendly, and I do feel like, again, that's an instant connection for Suri. I know that is also something that is talked about. I've seen people wonder if this is a tribe built for Suri, a tribe that, again, was given, again, the likes of Joe and Ozzy. And again, Ozzy has an initial connection to really benefit Sri in the game. And again, I could definitely see that being a thing that they would do, is stack a tribe to try to keep in their favorites deeper into the game. That being said, I do feel like there probably would have been better people to put on here if they were necessarily doing that. But again, I would not be shocked if that's something that at least came across their minds. But beyond that, again, I could definitely see some other connections on this tribe. I could definitely see Suri and Emily working together. I feel like Emily definitely feels very Izzy coded. So I feel like Emily would be someone that Suri would work with. And obviously there's the Blend the Clock Tower connection here between Christian and Emily, who both, again, frequently play Blend the Clock Tower together, to where, again, I feel like that's going to be a connection here. Along the fact that also I believe like Christian and Rick Devens are pretty friendly. And again, I could definitely see that being a trio on this tribe of Rick, Christian, and Emily, who all kind of run around the same circles there. However, outside that, I feel like there's a lot of people kind of in no man's land on this tribe that don't really have any like natural allies, where I feel like Joe is someone that, again, coming into the preseason, I was feeling pretty good about, especially after hearing all these interviews from older players, how all these like older school players on this season wanted to work with Joe. However, he's not really on a tribe with any of those players. Again, we heard that from the likes of like Colby. We heard that from the likes of like Steph. And yeah, I feel like Coach is someone that would definitely work with him. Yeah, again, none of them are here. And I feel like that is something that is a bit strange, though. Again, Joe is Joe, and I feel like he's very rarely going to be taken out early on any given season. But beyond that, you have Jenna Lewis, who obviously is going to come into any modern season a bit less connected. And again, this is a spot here where where, again, probably not the greatest starting point for her. I don't feel like there's any like natural allies for her. Like I can see her getting along with Suri and, again, maybe Christian, Rick Devens, Ozzy. I'm sure, again, she can build connections here. Yeah, I think it's just a spot here where obviously there's no natural allies for her. And Savannah also is in a very precarious spot here where, again, potential placement spot for Survivor 49, but again, this is more so speculation, but again, it's kind of commonly talked about. Again, there's pretty open talk about people thinking that Savannah might be a winner. As again, we know that Marianne was initially on the cast and being swapped out once the 49 players came into the picture, to where when taking Marianne out, again, we're left with only 2 winners on the cast on a 3-tribe season, to where, again, there's reason to think that the person that replaced Marianne could be a winner. Now, again, it's definitely not a guarantee. It's definitely something that I think could happen, especially considering Savannah's now on a tribe without the 2 other winners, to where, again, I'm still not like fully sold this is definitely a thing. Yeah, again, it's definitely something to think about here. And again, whether Savannah is the winner of 49 or not, I think something that has to be said is the fact that the players on the cast are going to assume she is, as again, they know that she took Marianne's spot. And we've had reports from people in the alumni community, that people are assuming that Savannah won 49. So again, whether or not she won or not, she is probably going to have the target on her back as if she won. And I feel like that is definitely a bad spot for Savannah. I feel like Savannah is probably the first boot from this tribe because of that, to where outside that, again, she seems like someone that could be a well-rounded player. Yeah, I do feel like that worry is definitely going to be something that might catch up to her. But really, this is a tribe here that, again, I think it really is, again, that Blend the Clock Tower alliance of Christian, Emily, and again, Rick Devens kind of just there, along with, again, Suri and Ozzy. And again, I think Joe just fits in naturally to where, again, I do think it is a tribe where probably Jenna and Savannah are probably the ones I would say are the most in danger. And with that, we then get to the Purple Tribe, a tribe containing Colby, Kyle, Q, 49 spoiler, Rizzo, Angelina, Aubrey, Genevieve, and Stephanie, which very much screams out right away as the Disaster Tribe, where, again, looking at the Orange and Teal tribes, they both have some extremely strong challenge competitors, some of the best of all time. Again, Orange has Ozzy, Joe. Teal has, again, Jonathan, Dee, Tiffany. This tribe has, again, I mean, Colby and Stephanie, who are, again, some of the strongest players back in their day. Again, I don't know if that's really stuck. Rizzo, who I'm not expecting to be the best challenge competitor in the world. Genevieve and Angelina, who are, again, kind of just okay on their seasons. Aubrey, who I think is probably understated as a competitor, but again, still not great. And again, Kyle and Q, who I think are the 2 most physical players on this tribe, but still a spot where, again, I don't think they're nearly as good as those on the other tribes, where I think, again, they're the best competitors on this tribe, and they're kind of tier 2 when these other tribes have like multiple tier 1s, where, again, I think Purple here definitely feels like more of a disaster tribe here. So to be fair, again, don't know how much time there really is going to be on the season to be much of a disaster tribe. Well, beyond that, I think it's also just kind of an interesting tribe character-wise, where, again, we have 2 of the biggest characters on this entire season, and Angelina and Q being on the same tribe here. Aubrey and Genevieve have pretty good confessionals. Colby will be interested to see how he goes on this season. Again, I think this is a really interesting tribe from a character perspective, and it's also a tribe that I really don't know where it lands from a strategic standpoint. I feel like a lot of these players are just so unconnected, where really the only connection that I think is apparent here is the Colby-Stephanie connection, where obviously they were on Heroes Villains together, they worked together at that time, and there are reports about how Colby was doing a decent amount of pre-gaming. I would not be shocked if he was doing a decent amount of pre-gaming with Stephanie, and I do feel like that is a connection here that I see coming together right away. Outside of that, again, there's not many other outside connections to where, again, I'm sure a lot of these people have seen each other at events. Again, I know Kyle was supposed to going to a lot of events, though for some reason lying about him being on the season, which I don't know why he was doing that. Again, that kind of ruins the point of you going to events. But again, I'm sure like Angelina and Aubrey have run in the same circles, where, again, I'm sure that some of these people do know each other, but again, there's not really many inherent connections off the board. And this is a spot here where I think I would worry for Colby and Stephanie. I do feel like they feel like outliers, where I do feel like the most likely situation to happen here is that the new era players, plus again, Aubrey and Angelina kind of gang up on the old schoolers, yet at the same time, Q is there, and Q is Q. So again, Q is obviously such a hectic presence, where again, I just don't think he's ever going to be a particularly reliable ally, and I feel like he will probably blow up whatever alliance he's in around after he makes it. So where, again, I would not be shocked if that causes a lot of chaos on this tribe, especially because I could definitely see Q wanting to work with Colby. As again, I could definitely see Colby being like his hunter on this season, though again, how long will that relationship last? Also, I could definitely see Q ending up being like the Rome for Genevieve, to where I could definitely see that being a connection here as well. Also, beyond that, again, I think Kyle's coming in this season with a massive target on his back. Yeah, I actually feel like this is a cushy enough landing spot for him, one where, again, I could definitely see him bonding pretty well with the likes of Colby and Steph, and really just most of the people here. Also, the fact that Colby and Rizgod ended up being on the same tribe is just kind of funny because, again, there might be a world where Colby calls him Rizgod. Now, again, Rizzo obviously is just a complete unknown. I really don't know what's going to happen with him. Again, for all we know, he's like such a chaotic player and they take him out early, or maybe he's just kind of a normal guy and people want to work with him. Again, I legitimately don't know. But again, it really feels like a tribe where there's a lot of potential early targets here. Where, again, I think Colby and Steph are probably the two that I think are on the outs from the offset. But again, Kyle was a big target. Q is so chaotic that I could see him blowing up his game. Rizzo is just such an unknown to where I feel like, again, there are a lot of people here that I think the target could eventually shift onto. Yeah, I do feel like this seems, at least on paper, to be a group where I do feel like a lot of the more new school players will likely be working together. So again, those are the 3 tribes of the season. Now let's talk about the more format rumors that are out there, which again, will not be talking about any boot spoilers of people who go out in specific spots. However, again, I will be talking about how the season is formatted, how eliminations are going to be handled, what twists are in the game. Again, that is what this will be more focused on. And there's a few things to talk about. Now, again, I will get to fan vote, and again, I'll probably just run through every vote and talk about what we do know and don't know at that point. But there's a couple other things that are not involved in that we do kind of know at this point. First, in the fact that we know that the premiere will only contain 1 elimination, which is interesting because obviously, again, with this cast being 24 players and again, them needing to obviously whittle down the cast pretty quickly, I think the assumption, and my assumption, was that the format of the season was going to be baked in double elimination for the entire pre-merge. As again, it kind of makes sense that you have 3 tribes. When tribe wins immunity, the other tribes go to tribal. It doesn't seem like that is what they are doing here, by the fact that they're only going to have 1 boot for that first episode, to where obviously that would leave an odd number of players left in the game, and to where, again, obviously, like, for all we know, it could be a baked in part of the format immediately after that. Yeah, again, at the end of the day, I would not be shocked if we still obviously get the split tribal in the post-merge. We still get some like other double elimination twists. Yeah, again, I would have preferred, again, a more baked-in aspect of the format where 2 people go home. Though, again, it doesn't seem like they're doing that based on what we know. Now, beyond that, we also do know that journeys are still going to be on Survivor 50, or that mixed in with, again, a lot of the other things that we've learned about the season that, again, we'll talk about the fan votes. Makes me just feel like this is probably just going to feel like a very new era season. Just, again, now for returning players, which ultimately, again, is kind of what I expected to begin with. And while obviously, again, I had these hopes that we might get something a bit more in line with older school Survivor, it feels like, again, we're likely just going to get a lot of new era flair here, which, to be fair, again, could be interesting. Could be interesting to see the likes of Colby go on a journey and lose his vote. And again, it might be funny just to see these old school players having to deal with this new era BS. But I still think that's, again, a tad disappointing, but again, kind of expected. Also, it does seem like we're getting a family visit on this season, which, I mean, don't ask me how we know this, considering, again, that gets into the spoilery territory. Considering, again, this is not Redmond, this is from other sources, but it does seem like it is happening. It's but we're obviously, again, cool to see it back. We have not had a family visit since Survivor 40, and obviously that one will be hard to top. And by the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like they are trying to top it. It sounds like they're probably just going to do a traditional 1 family member family visit. Yet again, it's still a spot where family visits are back. That's cool. I like having it for returning player seasons. It opens it up for some callbacks to previous seasons. And in general, again, I was kind of expecting them to do this anyway. I did feel like they're probably saving the return of the family visit for a grander season, like season 50. So again, cool to have it back here. And the final thing before getting to the actual fan vote is the fact that we did also learn that there are no buybacks on the season. There's no Redemption Island. There's no Edge of Extinction. It's about where Jeff Probst himself did say around time Survivor 41, I know that for returning seasons, there's always going to be Edge of Extinction, where obviously it doesn't seem like they're doing that here. And again, to be fair, it would have been very difficult to do with 24 people, where I think the only way they would have been able to do that is if they utilized the original Ghost Island twist. And even then, again, I think even they've realized it's a bad idea. So again, it does seem like, again, it's just a straight up game of you get eliminated, you're out, which again, at least there's that. Even though, again, I do think if you were to do something like Edge of Extinction, I do feel like, again, a season like this is the time to do that, where obviously the point of it is to keep around these bigger names for longer. And again, I think that worked effectively in Winter's at War, even though they didn't have enough time to really make the most of it. While here, they have 90-minute episodes. So again, I actually would not have been opposed to a Edge of Extinction style aspect of the format. Though at the same time, not a shocker that we didn't get one here, considering, again, the obviously large amount of people on the cast. But with that, now let's get into the fan votes, where, again, I'll be running through all the fan votes, talking about what I picked, talking about the results of them if we know them. Though before we get to that, again, I just want to talk generally about the fan vote, which obviously ended up being very disappointing, where, again, I made a video when this got announced, actually being fairly optimistic on it, again, especially considering the first batch, where, again, the first batch of questions, again, were pretty decent. It just went completely downhill from there, where, again, it does feel like a spot here where, in this entire title of In the Hands of the Fan just comes off very performative at this point. It doesn't really feel like a season that is in the hands of the fans, especially considering most of the results that we ended up getting here are just things that we were going to get anyway. And I feel like that turned out to be kind of how they handled these, is that, again, they knew certain things that they wanted to do, and they knew the results of the votes that they were going to get. And they obviously worded the questions in a way that would get people to vote the way they wanted, where, again, it feels like they essentially just got what they wanted here. Again, it just became pathetic as time went on. The questions that we ended up getting, where, again, we start off with a pretty good group, and then, like, by the end, we're literally just getting one question, a pretty insignificant one. But again, we'll run through the fan votes from beginning to end. Again, the first batch of fan votes that we got first up was Tribe Colors. And again, this one we already know. It's, again, very openly known what the result is. It's orange, teal, and purple. Now, I actually personally voted for green, red, yellow, which is obviously not the most unique color scheme in the world, yet it is one where that does parallel with Survivor All-Stars. So again, I thought that would have been a cool callback to do there, though ultimately, again, it doesn't really matter. So again, it's not really a thing that I actually have that much vested interest in, to where, again, I'm kind of fine with how this vote turned out. Next up, we got the vote for rice or no rice, in a spot here where I voted for rice. Now, again, it's another thing that I'm not like really that vested in this at the end of the day, where, I mean, one, I vote for rice because it's an anti-production thing, because they don't want that. All while also, for me personally, I would rather players be fed and be able to play a high-level game over, again, just being depleted and have a lack of energy. Mind you, again, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter too much to me. I can definitely see the merit to no rice as well, especially considering, again, people with no rice, if they have the energy to do so, can definitely act a lot wackier and crazier and do things against their best interests, which, again, is also interesting TV. So again, I vote for rice, but it does seem like no rice did win the vote, which, and to be fair, again, for something like Survivor 50, and if you were to really want to test these old school players in this new format, I guess having them get no rice, like, again, what is done in the new era, would make sense there. Next up, the big one, and the big one really of the entire thing, in my opinion, probably the vote that actually mattered the most. We got Final Four fire making, where obviously I voted against it. Obviously, I've been very open the fact that, again, I don't think forced fire is good. I think it makes the game more so based around 4-person alliances instead of 3-person alliances, which even that's bad, or that's why I like Final 2s more. But either way, again, forced fire making, obviously I'm very against it. And I think a good chunk of the superfan community is against it. The problem is that the casuals aren't, because supposedly we're still getting forced fire making, which, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm disappointed, but I'm not shocked at this result. I was fully expecting this by the time it happened, where, again, even looking at the superfan polling, even there, it was not as wide of a margin as you would think, as, again, based on how the superfan community talks, you would think that it would be like a 90% approval rating to get rid of forced fire, yet it really was only like 66, to where, again, when the superfan community themselves are not particularly unified on this topic, and when the casuals, I feel like, again, typically would love forced fire making, and it is a spot here where I was expecting forced fire making to stay, and sadly, again, it seems like it did. The final vote for the first round of voting was doing the vote reveal in Los Angeles or keeping in Fiji, where, again, this was very obvious. Like, obviously they knew what was going to happen here, where obviously I voted for a reunion in Los Angeles, and again, that is where it went as well. Again, kind of expected. I don't know who would have expected them to keep in Fiji. I don't know who even voted to keep it in Fiji. I really don't know if anybody was really pro the decision to do the after show over a reunion. So again, ultimately, again, not a shocker that this played out that way. Next, moving on to the second round of voting, starting off with the Final Four challenge, where, again, this was something that very much disappointed me, where, again, at least they allowed us to make this decision, though, again, through making this decision, again, made it clear that, one, we're probably not getting a Final 2, which, again, we ultimately aren't, and also that they're not allowing us to vote on an endurance challenge, which obviously I would have liked to see as well. I mean, kind of, again, obviously some motions, technically endurance challenge, but again, not in the way that I would have liked. Obviously, it would have been fantastic to end this on Hands on a Heart Idol. Yet again, was an option here. Instead, we essentially just got the final immunity challenges for the last few seasons. We got the final immunity challenge for Survivor 46, again, the one that you throw the ball up the pachinko board and you can only work on your puzzle while it's up. Again, kind of lame. The 47 final immunity challenge, which is just an obstacle course, and then the 48 final immunity challenge, which obviously is way more than that, but either way, Samotion, which, again, I voted for, and I would expect Samotion to win. We actually, at the time of this recording, we actually don't know the result of this just yet. Again, I would suspect Samotion won. I feel like it's the more classic of the three, and I feel like, again, it just feels like the no-brainer of the bunch, though, again, just kind of lame that they didn't give us better options here. And now we're getting to the point where, again, this is where I started to feel like things were going a bit downhill. We get a question about advantages. If we want them to have minimal power, strategic power, or dynamic power. When it's like, what does any of this mean? This doesn't mean anything. And again, ultimately, again, I vote for minimal power just because, again, I feel like that's what production doesn't want. And again, in situations where I don't really care that much, I just vote for whatever production doesn't want. But again, it's a spot here where, again, like, we don't know the result of this just yet. And ultimately, again, it doesn't really matter because it, again, just feels so arbitrary. I feel like they're just going to do whatever they want to do anyway, whatever the vote was, and just explain it as if it was within that. Now, obviously, again, it would be tougher to do that with like minimal, but still, it's still a spot here where all this just felt so arbitrary. And with that, we then get to the final vote of round 2, which was again another obvious one. We got yes or no to a tribe swap, and again, obviously, we're getting a tribe swap, and again, we have confirmation we got a tribe swap. Now, worry is the fact that Redmond has specified that is an early tribe swap, and I'm very worried about how early that is. Now, again, if we lose one person during the first round and then lose another 2 in that following round, we would be down to 21. I could see a world where we swap at 21 into 3 tribes of 7, which could kind of nullify the point of running through tribe divisions, considering very little of it would matter. But still, it's a spot here where it does feel like if we are getting a early tribe swap, that is what I think is the most likely. I think we're probably likely to get like an episode 3 tribe swap into 3 tribes of 7, which is kind of lame. Or obviously, again, the optimist would probably think that would go down to 20 and we get 2 tribes of 10. Yeah, again, I do doubt that personally. But again, I'm happy we're getting a swap at all. Obviously, again, I'd rather have a swap than no swap. So we're getting it. But again, the fact that it does happen early on in the season is a bit of a worry to me, where again, I think I would have preferred how Winners at War handled it. Again, it happening again about 4 or 5 rounds after the start of the game. And really just in general, that's kind of just how I would ideally like most Survivor seasons to be structured. Again, probably a swap after like episode 4. Yeah, again, it seems like here it's happening earlier than that. But then we get to round 3, where the first question here is, again, a fine one. Immunity necklace. Which one do we want? Both of which having a phoenix on it, which I think is interesting, considering there's no phoenix iconography on anything else 50 related at this point. And I remember when this actually came out that I was under the impression that, oh, this is a sign to me that we're getting a second chance cast, or at least a non-winners cast. Again, it's like the phoenix representing redemption. And it's like, no, that's not what they're doing here. And ultimately, I don't really care which one wins here. I did vote for the one that is actually in the shape of the phoenix, more so than the one that's like the phoenix in kind of like a pendant below it. Again, either way though, I don't really care which one. They're both fine. They're both pretty decent. So again, either way. Next up, again, we got a question about tribe supplies. Give them tribe supplies or make them earn it. Where again, I vote for give them, because again, why are we wasting time on the show doing the Sweater Savvy challenge? And ultimately, again, we don't know the result of this yet. Again, if I were to guess, I would say that more than likely it was voted to make them earn it. And again, we're likely going to get a dumb Sweater Savvy style challenge at the beginning of 50, because we still need to do dumb things like that. But then again, we get to the next thing, twists. Essentially, a lot of them, or keep them rare, which it's like, this is so arbitrary. Again, this is going back to that Vantage question where it just feels like a thing of like, again, they could do whatever they want and then rationalize it either way. And I don't feel like this is a spot here where the verbiage here is particularly clear on what would happen with these results, where I obviously voted to keep them rare. Now, this is one that I don't believe we know the results of just yet. I can really see it going either way. I could see a world where we do get a lot of twists, where again, the casuals wanted a lot of twists and wanted to shake things up. Yeah, I do think most of the superfan community is probably anti-twist. And again, I could definitely see people wanting a more natural game. Yeah, again, by the wording of the question, again, I would lean towards a very twist-heavy season winning out here. Though again, I do question, like, what do those twists mean? Like, are they going to be like related to the double eliminations, how they happen? And again, based on the fact that journeys are still in the game, again, I don't know if the journeys were part of the twists or not, or ultimately, again, I would be inclined to think the twist thing won, but as of right now, I'm not really sure. And then we cut to the final round of voting, where they only gave us one option, which was so lame, and that being idols or no idols, where, I mean, come on, what do you think? Now, obviously, again, I know that there's some people that are very adamant about not wanting idols. Yeah, obviously, again, it's a spot here where obviously production knows idols is going to win. I knew idols was going to win. Obviously voted for idols because I don't know why you would not want idols. I think not wanting idols is essentially you wanting a more stagnant game. Now, at the end of the day, obviously, again, they won't know the results of these, and that's obviously the interesting dynamic of it, the fact that whether it's there or not, they would still have to play around idols. Yeah, again, I think idols are nothing but a positive for Survivor, especially if, again, contained to a not ridiculous degree, to where, again, I think this is a spot here where production clearly knew what they were going to get out of this, and again, we have learned since then that, yes, there are idols in the game, and again, that's kind of what you would expect. Again, there we go. That's all the fan votes. That's my opinion on them. That's, again, my opinions on the tribe divisions. So I don't know how much more 50 information we're necessarily going to get from this point on. Yeah, again, if we get something big, obviously, again, I might do an impromptu video on it. But again, as I said, like, this was supposed to be originally mixed in with my 49 video. I'll now be doing that 49 video separately. I'm talking about like the future of Survivor in that video, where again, there's some other topics that are kind of related to 50, more so about how we move on beyond 50. That again will be saved for that video. Beyond that, again, I still have a lot of 50 ready videos. Again, I've already recorded my history of the casting rumor mill video that I'm just kind of waiting for the right time to to edit it and put it together. Yeah, again, that'll probably be out at some point during 49. Beyond that, again, I also have a lot of like recasting videos, casting videos around 50 that I do want to do as well. Also, other sort of rankings that I'll be doing again before 50 ends up starting. So again, stay tuned for all those things. And obviously beyond that, again, we obviously have Big Brother 27 going on. We have A versus the World coming up. So again, there's going to be a lot of stuff soon, and I'll obviously be covering all that. So again, stay tuned for all those things. But for now, that is the video. Thank you for watching.